All right. Bear with me. I really have no idea what I'm doing. Of course, I watched a YouTube video, but that doesn't mean anything. Um, yeah, I have a notification that I just have first ever live stream going. And with the two video screens, this is crazy because I can see quite a delay. Apparently there's 3 viewers. All right. Wilhelmer Elfer first. Welcome to the chat, Wilhelmer. And Tyr. Hail, welcome, beautiful heathens. Thanks for joining us. Apparently this is working. For those of you that are typing comments, can you hear me? Because I don't know if my microphone is working. Tyr or Wilhelmer, can you hear me? Mary met Nava Wilk. Apparently there is a delay, so I'm not sure how long of a delay it is. So when I say something, I think it's taking like 40 seconds or so for you to see it. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. Never tried live streaming. Kind of think of it as a FaceTime, but I don't get the joy of seeing your faces or hearing your voices. So yeah, for those of you who are typing, how are things in your neck of the woods? Is everyone staying safe? Loud and clear. Excellent, excellent. You can hear me. That means it works. All right. Again, thanks for your patience because this is the first live stream. Before I really get into any of the so-called meat and potatoes, I want to wait to see if we get anyone else. But for the time being, Scolin, thanks for joining us. I can't even see what camera I'm on. Scolin, thanks for joining me. All right, I think I'm back. I think I'm back. No, I'm not using OBS. I'm on a Mac and I couldn't find OBS. If you recommend it, I'll look for it, but I couldn't find it earlier. So I found Live Desk Studio and it said it was free. And apparently it only works for 3 minutes. So I've upgraded to the non-free version, which cost me 20 bucks out of my pocket right there. And that just is to show how much I love you guys and thank you for your support. So, are you still with me? Yep. I figured there'd be a few issues on this first one. I can't believe I've gotten it to work at all. The whole YouTube thing is kind of crazy. I've had to learn a lot about editing and creating thumbnails, which has been a lot. And to squeeze that in between taking care of my wonderful family, find myself down here at my studio at 1, 2 in the morning quite frequently. So apparently I'm back. So Wilhelmer, Navawick is here. Yep. Great. Great to see you all. But Wilhelmer, you were saying OBS. Do you use OBS? Because do you recommend it? My computer is slow as can be. It's an old MacBook Air, and editing my standard videos oftentimes taxes it. So, but I'm willing to try anything. I don't know that I'm loving what I'm using right now. All right, we've got 8 viewers, which is, I can't believe I've got 8 viewers on a live stream. 7, okay. Thanks for joining us, whoever just clicked off. That's fine. So, um, yeah. Um, Big thing happened to me this week, and I want to get into that in a bit. Um, I did have a very special encounter out in the woods, and just curious if any of you can guess as to what that might have been. Um, yeah. Oh, and I've already lost another viewer. Goodbye. Oh. All right. So, yeah. Um, for those of you who are typing along and commenting, what were you hoping to get when you joined me on the live stream? I didn't really write a script for this. I've never done a live stream before. I had a few things I wanted to talk about. The first and what I think is the most important. I'll have to take a look at that StreamYards. But with all that's going on in the world today and the so-called craziness, I think, and I hope that a lot of people are realizing that it's we're way too dependent on external forces to help us. Oh, well, a bear definitely does what you are alluding to in the woods. um, what was I saying? Oh yeah, but we're far too many of us are far too. Thanks for sticking with me, Nava. Um, Far too many of us are way too dependent on supply chains, and we've become consumers. And oh, I'm getting some sort of the current frame rate is too high. How do I do that? Sorry, technical difficulties. Yeah, so everyone's realizing what is important, and that's great. When things change back, we need to be mindful in that we don't forget everything that is important. Um, and that's going to be challenging because the so-called powers that be, who benefit from us and whatever we do, are going to try and get that back under control. And we need to take control of our own destiny and become responsible for our own livelihood. And these are all ideas that are espoused in the Havamal. And the Nine Noble Virtues, you can say what you want of them. I think they're a great intro to heathens, because you can't just spout off the whole Havamal in 20 seconds. So the 9 virtues make for a great elevator speech. And one of the 9 virtues is self-reliance. And if you're relying on other people for your livelihood, then you're in trouble when things like this happen. Luckily, most places seem to still have access to stores, and you can go buy most standard commodities. I don't expect anyone to be able to grow their own toilet paper, but there are a lot of alternatives you can grow that you could either compost. No, you'll have to compost them because anything besides toilet paper in the sewer or your septic system is just a bad thing. But so take this opportunity. A lot of people aren't working. You have time to go out in your yard and transform part of that yard into a garden. If you don't have a yard, figure out what you can grow in containers on your deck. And I wanted to suggest some quick crops that would get you food within the next month right now. But I'd also highly recommend that you take a look at what kind of long-term nutrient-dense storage crops you can grow. And some of those you're going to want to be starting right now, like potatoes. A lot of people really suggest the potato barrel and say that you can grow like 400 pounds of potatoes in a barrel by continuing to add dirt as the potatoes grow up. The only way that works is if you can keep outside of the barrel cool by insulating it with straw or something, and that ends up taking a lot of room. In other words, the outside of the barrel gets way too hot, and that heat penetrates the soil within the barrel, and fries the taters before you get any sort of food. So definitely grow potatoes because they're a very easy storage crop, very nutrient dense, and yeah, and you can grow a lot of food in a small amount of space. So potatoes are one of the cool crops that the more work you put into them, the more you continue hilling where you planted that potato, the more potatoes you're going to get. So if you have the availability to bring in more compost, more dirt, straw, whatever, and just keep burying those vines as they come up out of the ground, you're going to get a bumper crop. And that's going to last for a long term. That said, it takes a long time to harvest potatoes. What can you do to put some food on the table right now? The fastest crop you can grow is microgreens. And they're pretty nutrient dense. I'm a huge fan of pea shoots. Ooh. Sorry you're out of TP, Nava. Yeah, washcloths. We used washcloths in our house for a long time before we went off grid, and we had access to toilet paper. It was just more eco-friendly. Now that we're off grid and we have to hang dry all of our clothes to dry them, because the solar system can't really keep up with an electric dryer, we've gone back to toilet paper. It's actually good for our septic system to have a little bit of carbon in there. So yeah, it's a fine balance, but Nava, I hope you continue using the washcloths. I know it grosses a lot of people out, but do we need to cut down trees to wipe our butts? Now that it's summer and I can line dry clothes, we'll probably be going back to washcloths in the next probably a month for us. Today it was 35 degrees, so I couldn't really line dry anything. But I was talking about quick crops, and the fastest crop you can grow is the microgreens. Pea shoots and sunflower sprouts. Get a flat, or you can use a little berry container from your strawberries that you bought, whatever. Fill it with soil, get it moist, cover the whole surface with either peas, soak them overnight, or sunflower seeds. I use black oil sunflower seed that you buy for bird food for this. Soak them overnight, put them on top of that soil, and just sprinkle a little bit of soil over them. Within a week, you're going to have a crop that you can grow. They're delicious. You put them on sandwiches. You can add them to salad. Use it as a garnish for your steak. Very nutrient dense, very fast source of food. And then the root mass in that soil block is an awesome additive to your compost. If you have chickens, they love tearing through those. They get some feed value out of it. So yeah, you can do that. And then as far as in-ground crops you can grow that are fast would be radishes and head lettuce. Both of these you can get something in about 30 days. It's going to depend on how warm it is, but you can grow a bunch of radishes and then chop them up, ferment them, and store them indefinitely. So radishes are one of my favorite quick crops to grow. My soil is still frozen. I'm jonesing to plant something. I don't know about you all. But I highly recommend using a lot of space for radishes. And within 30 days after you crop out those radishes, you can look at adding a more long-term crop in there. Or you could plant a row of radishes next to your potatoes and crop out your radishes and use that loose soil to hill up onto your potatoes. Yeah, so who else still with us? All right. I had advertised this for a 4 o'clock start. I'm guessing this is what we've got. So this week I receive signs frequently. I spend a lot of time looking for signs. Spend a lot of time in Utasita. At least twice a month. I'll go sit out for the night. And I am a firm believer that often, although you can have a quick journey session and receive information quickly, if you are going to practice Utasita, you should sit out for the whole night. And part of that is just because that is what we learn in the lore, and that's how Utasita was performed. But I also think that it really, when you sit out for these longer periods of time, you end up either going more in depth with the initial contact that you get with a ancestor or God, or it weeds out the messages that are they're not necessarily trivial, but the more trivial messages. And it's certainly, 4 or 5 in the morning that the real heavy stuff hits you. But this week, I had a day off. Go figure. And I went for a walk in the woods. And where I live, there's some large patches of land with absentee landowners that have given me permission to hike on their land. And so there's an area I love to hike. It's near where the elk bed in the fall. It's just beautiful. I can see the Bitterroot Mountains out in the valley across from me. There's generally always some sort of game there to see. I went there looking for signs and hoping maybe I'd find a shed, because the deer and elk are starting to drop their antlers, and who doesn't want a good rack or good shed to either make runes out of or use for some other purpose. Honor these mighty creatures that let me live next to them, right? So I was out walking without a real ambition. I'd hiked around for a little bit. I found a really cool grove underneath some alder trees with a creek running right by. I'm definitely going to be going back there to meditate more. I might actually perform my next Uttasita there. It's a place that my daughter will love to go hang out in the summer, because the trees totally cover you in, and it's almost like a little fort with a creek running through it. Really cool. And so I was there. I figured my time was kind of up. I had to get back, do some work, go be dad. So started hiking back, and as I was walking up, I could see the road out across from me. And there was a white pickup truck driving up it that I knew didn't belong to anyone who lives in my neighborhood. Someone trespassing. And, we've got a 5-mile private road that myself and the other landowners have to maintain, and it costs a lot. Both time and monetarily, renting a grader for the day is pretty pricey. So I was just going to try and head this guy off at the top of the hill and let him know that he was trespassing, because we get a lot of people that like to go mudding on our road. And someone mudding is the last thing you want on a private road. So I was walking up. Actually, I decided to run. I figured the only way I was going to cut him off at the pass was if I ran. Apparently, I need to start running again, because it was a harder task than I anticipated. But I started running, and I was getting close, and there was a little bench before another uphill to where I would intercept the truck. And then off to the distance, not really in the distance, but 60 yards away, not even 60 yards away, 60 feet, in the brush, I heard the brush rattling. I was like, oh, the truck scared a deer, and deer's going to be running right at me. And I look over at the brush, and running out of the brush is a mountain lion running straight at me. I've spent a lot of time in my life in the woods. I know I've been around cats before, but I've only ever seen 2 in the wild. This is my 3rd. And this cat was running right at me, and it wasn't until it was about 10 feet, if not less, that it looked me dead in the eyes, and I could see its thought. I could see it thinking, do I jump on him, or do I go the other way? I was bracing for impact. I thought for sure, okay, this is it. It was a good ride. Cat went the other way. I had to sit with it. I actually talked to one of my mentors, Ivy Mulligan, over at the 21st Century Heathen, Reclaiming the Art of the Vulva. If you're not familiar with her, check out her work. She's an awesome teacher. I am honored to call her a friend, contemporary teacher, mentor, sister. But spoke with her about it a little bit. She laughed, said she wasn't going to give me any answers. Found some time to sit with it, and man, we're dropping viewers. Okay, it's fine. But so I sat with it, and some people say when you see an animal, it doesn't always mean anything. Sometimes a raven's just a raven. I'll agree with that. Encountering a mountain lion is never just an encounter with a mountain lion. They're ninjas. You don't see them. They're stealthy. I know I've been around them before. They like to hide. It's what they do. They're good at it. So I sat with it, and Well, I am very much all about reconnecting everyone I can with Vanic energy and kind of getting away from civilization, which the Aesir can represent, um, and returning to nature. In that path and amidst the chaos that's going on in the world today, as we rebuild our future, what this cat has taught me is, and the cat is definitely a Jotun energy. It's wild, primal, right? Um, we need all three tribes. Three. Where's my camera? We need all three tribes equally represented as we rebuild tomorrow. And that's the only way we're ever going to have balance and make Midgard as awesome of a place as it can be. Um, yeah, is anyone following me? Any questions? Or have all the people that left, are you my commenters? Um, Nava, gooseberry. What kind of gooseberry did you get? And it's going to be a delay before you get me because that question's not even being asked yet. Um, but so this encounter with the cat was really powerful, and there are more lessons to it. But that is the big one that I want to propose. And I've gotten a lot of flack for one of the more popular videos I did about Asa True will fail you. And I have nothing against the Aesir. I work with Odin frequently. Tyr is an amazing person. Um, God person. I don't want to sell him short. And the Aesir have a lot to teach us, but we need to balance those learnings, those teachings, with what we can learn from the Vanir tribe, Freyr, Freya, and Njord, um, and the giants, Skadi. Um, so Nava says that she believes in spirit animals, and she got 3 Glendale gooseberries. I'm really excited for your gooseberries. You got a good place to put them? Gooseberries are one of my favorite bushes. I've got 3, hoping to plant about 10 more maybe this spring. We'll see what the budget allows. The ones I have are still too small to propagate from. I like buying really tiny plants, tiny plants, tiny trees. A lot of studies show that in the long run, they catch up with bigger ones faster and produce sooner, and they're more economical. And I don't know about you all, but I'd rather go to the nursery and buy 20 plants for the price of 2 big plants. I've got some time on my hands. A lot of what I'm doing is for my descendants anyway. So, but as far as this cat, oh yeah, it definitely means something that it didn't attack me. When I sat with it later in a meditative state, I did some pretty heavy breath work to reach an altered state of consciousness. And what I actually saw was the encounter from the cat's perspective. And the cat is an element of me, or there's an element of me within that cat. And from the cat's eyes, I recognize myself as something foreign, but at the same time, myself. I'm not necessarily saying the cat is my spirit animal, or totem, whatever you would like to call it. Normally, when I interact with my filja, it is a hawk, but yeah, there's no random encounter with mountain lions. I guess maybe if you're a bicyclist or a jogger, sometimes you can trick them into thinking you're a deer, which I don't suggest because deer is #1 on their menu. Yeah, but as you go to grow these quick crops, be mindful of what you can do for more perennial looking crops, such as the Glendale gooseberries. But if your gooseberries are small right now, plant them right alongside where you're going to plant your radishes for the time being. You'll have some disturbed soil. The gooseberry roots aren't going to go too far out, so when you dig up your radishes in 30 days, you're not going to really destroy them. It's awesome, Nava. I love interacting with raptors. Red-tailed hawks are really cool, and if one landed right above you, I'm sure it meant something. I do have a hard time interpreting animal signs for other people. It's a question I get a lot. Yes, they are. Down to 3 viewers. Well, that's fine. But yeah, a lot of times, friends of mine, family members will say, "Oh, I saw a hawk today," or "I saw this today. What does it mean?" And animal signs, unless you can give me all the details of what was going on, specifically with that animal, were they acting normal, were they acting abnormal? Reading animals is a very fine art. And so unless I know what they were doing, and if the person went out with the intent to receive message, it's hard to interpret the message. And then I also have the issue with family members where sometimes I will interpret the sign and I know I'm correct in how I interpreted the sign, but it's either my family member doesn't want to hear what the animal says and I'm the person saying it, so their confirmation bias says Matt doesn't know what he's talking about. That's generally what happens. The gooseberry is self-propagating. From my experience, the likelihood of it is very, very low. There is a chance a bird will eat some berries and add some nitrogen and phosphorus to them and plant the seeds elsewhere. But in most areas, they're not considered invasive. I'm not a huge fan of the term invasive. By and large, in my opinion, it's a term that was coined by chemical companies to get you to buy their product to get rid of these invasive species. And most of what is called invasive, I don't think is really as invasive as we're led to believe. It's just not managed properly. That said, where I live, we do have invasive knapweed, and it is doing a big danger, or not, it's doing damage to the local ecosystem, outcompeting grasses. It releases a chemical that inhibits the growth of other plants, and it provides no feed value to the majority of animals in the native ecosystem. And that's part of why I have goats. Goats will eat knapweed. So I can let my goats eat the knapweed, I get some milk, I don't have to buy chemicals, and over the course of a few years, if I can grow my flock large enough, my herd big enough, maybe I can get more grass growing and create better habitat for the native species that are my neighbors. But the gooseberries should not self-propagate. Off the top of my head, if you want to propagate the gooseberries, they do best with softwood cuttings, which you would collect fresh growth in the late spring, summer, and add root hormone. You can use a tea made out of willow cuttings, keep it in moist soil, and it should root. And that's just off the top of my head. You might want to look that up. Hardwood cuttings should work as well. So, screen shows that we have a fourth person who came back or who's joining us now. Anyone have any thoughts or comments? And yeah, that was the vast majority of what I wanted to talk about, was hoping to talk about, and I'm feeling good about this first live stream. That said, I'm really stoked that you guys are here, and I want to talk about anything that you would want to talk about. The gooseberries are going to do yeah, so roses are awesome propagating. They'll propagate very readily, and the wild roses will spread. That said, they're a great source of medicine. Plant them in the right way. You can make a hedgerow fence out of them, have a natural garden barrier to protect anything within the hedge. I love roses. Rose hips are great food and medicine. Kind of a double whammy there. Rose hip jam is delicious. Using it in teas is great. So I don't think you can have enough roses. We're pretty blessed. We have some amazing wild roses on our property. We are actually propagating them as well as planting some more select cultivars. I'm a huge fan of Rosa rugosa. Really big hips, like big hips. who doesn't? But yeah, rose is one of the easiest things in the world to propagate. It really makes me laugh how people get so geeked out about growing roses because they're really one of the easier plants to grow. I guess if you have a very specific flower type you're looking for, they can be more challenging. But as a practical gardener, someone looking to grow food, fiber, fuel, and medicine, wild rose and Rosa rugosa are very easy to care for and propagate as long as you have fairly decent soil. But what I was going to say about the gooseberries is they're a great understory tree. So if you have room for 3 gooseberries, you probably have room for a dwarf fruit tree. I'd be looking, I don't know exactly where you are, Nava, correct me, put A or A, and I'll pronounce your name better. But gotta catch my breath. What was I going to say? Yeah, find a dwarf fruit tree like an apple or a pear, and plant 1 or 2 of those underneath it. And having the shrub right underneath the tree will create some natural pruning. It's not going to send the tree's not going to send limbs right out into a brush growing next to it. And the gooseberries will actually benefit the dappled light that they get being underneath the canopy of a tree. Does that make sense? Wilhelmer, are you still here? How about Tyr? Yeah. I don't want to be rambling. I want to be talking about what you guys might want to hear. And Nava, the 4 roses that you dug up, did they establish well? Because if you want to propagate more, they'll grow from almost any propagation technique that you can use. Layering works really good. You basically bend them down, bury part of the branch with the tip coming out the other way. After a couple months where it's buried in the soil, will have grown roots. You cut that out, plant it somewhere else. You can use softwood or hardwood cuttings. And with the softwood cuttings or the hardwood cuttings, oftentimes you can just stick them in the ground where you want them to grow. You don't even need fancy potting mix or anything. Make sure you water the area and put a jar over it. That's how my grandma used to propagate the roses that she grew. And again, she was growing these hardier, more medicinal varieties. But we'd have 80% success rate with that. The biggest thing is, do you have enough jars to put over all of them to keep a humid area? Because if you're canning a lot or storing herbs and other foods, run out of jars pretty quick. That's great. 25% success rate with a wild transfer. I'm all for the philosophy of planting as many things as you can, and what survives, survives. At least definitely as far as your perennial crops go. And plant way more than you think you're going to need, depending on your land space. I've got my Zone 1 garden, and if you go back and look at the In a Garden Utengard video I did, it talks about garden zones. So I've got my Zone 1 garden in close to the house. Yeah, stinging nettle. Our stinging nettle is just starting to bounce back. Can't wait to have some stinging nettle salad. Love this stuff. But Zone 1 is in close to the house, a place I visit frequently. It's the most manicured, the tidiest spot. It's got water. But I plant stuff all throughout the rest of the property, zones 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, not so much. I do have a zone 5. Everyone should have a zone 5, even if you have a small suburban backyard. You can have a place that's truly dedicated to the wild, to the mountain lions. Probably not going to have a mountain lion in a suburban backyard. Hopefully not, anyways. But you could have just a wild fedge or hedge. I call them fedges sometimes. That means a food hedge, but a wild hedge that you don't really manage and becomes habitat for pollinator, insects, birds, small critters, squirrels, etc. Um, and having these places for the wild is really important in my opinion. And it goes to balancing those Jotun energies with the Aesir and the Vanic energies, which is what we need moving forward. But a lot of what I plant in the Zone 1 garden, I will plant extras outside of that. Because I live in an area I've got a herd of 80 elk that travels through my yard at least once a month. Um, and so I'd rather have them go into other sources of food than my garden. Um, you can't build a fence that keeps elk out. I haven't figured it out yet. I've seen a herd blow through a high tensile fence with 5-strand electric. Typically what happens is the first elk will stop at the fence and say, "This hurts, I'm getting shocked." But they've got 60 other elk piled up behind them saying, "Keep moving." And then you hear the twang of fences breaking. Fencing can be pretty pricey. So I'd rather plant in abundance and just plan on sharing with my neighbors and hope that some of it survives for my family and myself. Whoever the other 2 viewers are besides Nava, thanks for sticking with me so long. I think at this point I'm going to have to thank everyone for joining me. It's great to see you, beautiful heathens. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I'd love to have some comments and feedback for what I can do to make a better, more entertaining live feed or live stream in the future. I hope to be doing this more because I'm doing this for you all. It's really important to me to try and build a community and inspire heathens to create a better world and be the role models for non-heathens to value and appreciate what we have and what we're, the wonders of Midgard. So thanks for tuning in, everyone, and until next time, happy growing.